Morning, everybody. The October 25, 2018 Veterans Land Board meeting will now come to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our last meeting on September 14. Assuming no questions or comments from the board and after having a chance to review, I could entertain a motion to confirm the minutes for the record.
I move we approve the minutes.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve the minutes. Next item on the agenda is number 2, quarterly investment report from our Chief Investment Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, for the record, Rusty Martin, Chief Investment Officer. I'll point out to you that this is a non-voting item. We place it on the agenda every quarter so that the board will be informed about the performance of the portfolio. Just briefly, some economic and market conditions. The GDP growth in the second quarter was a really high 4.2% after increasing 2.2% in the first quarter. U.S. unemployment rate ended the quarter down slightly at 4.0%. And as you probably know, the FOMC raised its target Fed funds rate range from 1.5% to 1.75%. That was their previous range, and they raised it to 1.75% to 2%, and that was at their June meeting. They're also continuing to tweak their balance sheet normalization program concerning the reinvestment of principal payments from its holdings in agency mortgage-backed securities and rolling over at auction of maturing Treasury securities. As you will recall, in October of last year, they began rolling over at auction the amount of maturing Treasury securities that exceeds $6 billion each month, and reinvesting in agency mortgage-backed securities the amount of principal payments from the Fed's holdings of agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities received during each month that exceeds $4 billion. Since then, they've raised these reinvestment thresholds several times, and at its June 2018 meeting, they voted to increase the target reinvestment thresholds once again from $18 billion to $24 billion, and from $12 billion to $16 billion, respectively. They also expect that further increases in the Fed funds target range will be consistent with a sustained expansion of economic activity, strong labor market conditions, and inflation near the committee's 2% objective over the medium term. And of course, the actual path of those rates will depend on the economic outlook, which they will be watching very carefully. As far as the VLB portfolio is concerned, target duration, or the duration during the period, increased from 4.7 to 5.19 years, mainly as a result of the June debt service being paid, which debt service is paid in June and December of every year, which sucks a lot of the short-term investments out of the portfolio, which automatically increases the duration. Target duration for the portfolio is approximately 3.5 to 4 years generally. As far as performance is concerned, the total return for the quarter was 0.37%, versus the actual benchmark, which was 0.29%. And 1 year total return for the portfolio is 1.15% versus 0.47% on the benchmark. Yield to maturity on the portfolio was 2.95% versus 2.34% on the benchmark. That is the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Again, this is a non-voting item.
Any questions from the board at this time?
None here.
Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is an item that we place on the agenda at each meeting in case the board wants to discuss the rates in the program. I'm not recommending any changes at this time. I would like to point out to you that from a demand perspective and a funding perspective, the program has recovered to what I would call normal levels. For example, during fiscal year 2018, which ended August 31st, we made $574 million in new loans. That is right in the middle of our normal range of $500 to $600 million per year. Also, we made 2,100 new loans, which is right in line with the average, which is about 2,160 loans per year. Demand averaged $48 million a month. And the average loan size was $277,000 That's up from the year before, which was $261,000. But if you look back over the past several years, you can see each year there's been an increase in the average loan size as prices go up. Again, this is a non-voting item today. I'm not recommending any changes. We are right where we want to be with regard to demand in the program. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions at this time?
No questions, but just glad to see that we've come back there with the volume of loans and the average size.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rusty. Next item on the agenda is number 4, as stated.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Charlotte Mumford, Deputy Director of Land and Housing Program. There are no appeals before the board today.
This being a non-voting item, we can move to the next item on the agenda, number 5.
There were 13 tracts offered during the forfeited land sale online bidding period of September the 4th, 2018 through October the 23rd, 2018. We received a total of 163 bids, resulting in 7 high bids. Staff is requesting that the board award all high bids that meet qualifications for the land program. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
No questions.
Could I entertain a motion to accept staff recommendation?
I move we approve staff recommendation.
Motion is made, second, and carries unanimously to approve item number 5. Next item on the agenda is number 6.
Staff is requesting the board take forfeiture action on the resolution before you, except accounts where sufficient funds are received to avoid that action. 8 accounts are being presented for forfeiture action today. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions at this time?
None here. I move we approve.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve item number 6. Next item on the agenda is number 7.
Staff is requesting the board take action on the resolution before you. The resolution lists accounts to be considered for order for sale action today. These 4 accounts will become the tracts for the next forfeited land sale. We are requesting the board's authority to pull any account that fully reinstates prior to the sale date. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions at this time?
I'll move we approve.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve item number 7. Next item on the agenda is number 8.
Staff is requesting that the board set the next quarterly electronic forfeited land sale bidding period to begin December the 3rd, 2018, with a bidding deadline of January 22nd, 2019 at 5 p.m.
I move we approve.
Second. Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is number 9.
This item is not a action required item. I will not read the memo in its entirety. I will refer you to the 4th paragraph. As stated, the VHIP, which is the housing guidelines, do not allow for an extension or modification of loan maturity date, nor do the guidelines allow for a waiver of delinquent interest or repayment of advances for escrow accounts shortages. Therefore, the 11 modifications request for veterans negatively impacted by Hurricane Harvey require a waiver from the restrictions of the housing guidelines. Staff, upon receipt of acceptable modification terms and conditions, will make recommendations for waiver and modification approval to the Commissioner in his capacity as chairman of the Texas Veterans Land Board. Any housing guideline waiver and disaster modification recommendations for the Commissioner's approval shall be in accordance with the VA's guidelines as modified by Circular 26-17-39, and on a one-time basis with respect to only these 11 loans. There should be no further loan modification request based on the VA circular, as the one-year application deadline has passed.
Quick question. So these were loans that came to us. I was just wondering if we have done any analysis looking into Harris County and looking at other loans that may be in trouble or nearing foreclosure or behind on payments.
These are the only 11 accounts that our servicer has brought forward. I do not have the specifics as the locations of those properties, but we can definitely get that information as to where the properties are located for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that no one was slipping through the cracks and didn't know to reach out for help, but could have been falling behind on payments and ultimately end up in foreclosure. So
I do know that at the time of the disaster, information did go out to the borrowers, letting them know their options.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any further questions?
In the timeline for potential modification would be for a Harvey-affected constituent, how long will they have a chance to come forward, or has the deadline come in and expired by this?
It has expired, yes. So they would have had to reach out to the servicer to request a modification and notify the servicer that they needed further assistance because of their delinquency within that time period.
And that was within a year, correct? of
That is correct.
landfall? Okay.
I would just recommend that the counties affected by the hurricane, that we try to take a look and see if there are any other accounts that are delinquent or behind, potentially for proactive outreach, just to check.
We can definitely reach out to the servicer and ask them to do another review of the accounts that are in the portfolio.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Now, those accounts, if they have not reached out, they would not be eligible for that because the 1 year has passed, but we may be able to work with them with something else.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlotte. That being a non-action item, we can move to the next item on the agenda, which is number 10, modification of the policy for naming of the state veterans' homes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. For the record, my name is John Berkeley, Deputy Director of the Texas State Veterans Homes. The purpose is for the consideration and action to revise the naming criteria for the new Texas State Veterans Homes. The purpose is to discuss the revision and removal of restrictive language currently contained within the naming policy for the state veterans homes. Two of the criteria in the original policy for the naming of the veterans homes required that in order for the name to be in consideration for a state veterans home, the individual must be deceased with a distinguished service record and must have entered service from the local community, and the community must be considered the nominee's home at the time of his or her death. The current policy limits the number of nominees by requiring that they must be deceased. Bonham, for example, only had one name put in submission when that home was named. The current home in Houston had 3 names submitted. The Temple facility actually was named after the mayor of Temple for his community service, not necessarily his military service. It's unfair to our veteran heroes who have survived their wartime experience, as heroism of the event fades with memories. The goal has always been to honor Texas heroes, and by limiting the naming to just the local community is unfair, as it overlooks others who've done more but are not eligible because of their location. Our state veterans homes accept veterans from all over the state, without regard to where they come from. Our naming policy should reflect the same. The proposed language, the revised edits to the policy would read, to be eligible for consideration, the individual must be living or deceased Texas veteran with a verifiable record of distinguished community service or highly distinguished military service, or killed in the line of duty whose service record merits recognition. The second change would be to distinguished veterans must be currently living in Texas or was a resident of Texas at the time of his or her death. All other requirements would remain the same. I recommend that the board approve this revision to the naming policy for the Texas State Veterans Homes. I'm happy to answer any questions.
way that I'm reading the details section, two of the criteria in the original policy for naming the veterans' homes required that in order for a name to be in consideration, the individual must be a deceased veteran with a distinguished service record, and being kind of the operative word there. And the way that I'm reading the proposed language no longer has the requirement to satisfy both criteria. Is that your interpretation of the proposed language?
Yes, that is correct.
And additionally to that, there wouldn't be a requirement for a verifiable record of distinguished community service or highly distinguished military service.
They would still have,
And being KIA, whose service record merits recognition, sounds like. So
they
it could be
could
either
be-
or.
they could either be living or deceased, and they must have either a distinguished service record or a military service record.
But I think, to the commissioner's point, I think you need both 1 and 2, right? That they're, because 1 deals with their service and 2 deals more with their residency as a Texas veteran, I believe. I think it's just a minor edit, but just to include an and.
Okay, very good.
And after the, or between 1 and 2, is that?
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
I think that's what I'm trying to
Oh, I
get at,
see.
Mr. Berkeley,
Yes.
is the prior language has the requirement that there's a residency or a connection to Texas in some capacity. But I think, board, I'm not speaking on your behalf, but I think we're open to the proposed language as it relates to someone be living at the time of the recognition.
Okay. And so,
That makes sense.
sure, certainly.
And council may be more eloquent than me in trying to.
Well, the board is certainly able to move to amend the proposed changes to the policy and then vote on if that amendment is approved, then to vote on the amended policy. So and I think what I'm hearing, is that it would be after the word merits recognition, you'd put a semicolon and then the word and then continue on to 2.
Exactly.
I
Happy to
think
make
that
that
would reflect the
change.
spirit of what we're trying to communicate this
So
morning.
the board is certainly free board members are certainly free to make that motion to amend in that regard.
So moved.
Excellent, thank you.
Seconded.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to amend the
Amend.
proposed language.
And then the board, if board is so willing, can then move to approve the amended policy.
Board is so willing and so moved.
Appreciate it,
So
thank you very
seconded.
much. Thank you.
Motion is made, seconded, and it carries unanimously to approve item number 10. And assuming no other items before the board, we are hereby adjourned at this time. Thank you.